Hello and welcome back to Euro Football Daily, where we're looking at 5 reasons why it's all going wrong at Real Madrid. With a new manager appointed and club stalwarts nearing the exit door, not all is well with Los Blancos. 5. Zidane out, Ancelotti in. On the 27th of May 2021, Zinedine Zidane resigned as manager of Real Madrid for a second time. It was hardly a shock decision, with several spiky exchanges between the Frenchman and the media leading the Spanish press to speculate as early as November that he would go. Whilst his return to the club in March 2019 initially went well, with Los Blancos romping to the 2019-20 La Liga crown, his second full season back at the Bernabeu was far more disappointing. The title race may have gone to the final day, but they had only led for one game week in the entire season. What's more, they were beaten 3-1 by Chelsea in the Champions League semi-finals and lost to third-tier Alcoyano in the Copa del Rey, meaning they ended the season trophyless for the first time since 2009-10. The club also had months to prepare for Zidane's possible departure, but they appeared incredibly disorganised. Hours before his exit was revealed, the favourite to replace him, Max Allegri, announced his return to Juventus, whilst Antonio Conte was dismissed due to fears over his demands for control and new signings. Quickly it became clear that Carlo Ancelotti, rather than Castilla manager Raul, was the frontrunner for the job. 4 days after Zidane's departure, the Italian was confirmed. But despite being a club legend, having ended Real's 12-year wait for La Decima in 2014, his return was greeted by very little fanfare. The reasons for this are twofold. Firstly, the 2014-15 season, which saw the team go on a 22-match unbeaten run, only to finish with a semi-final UCL defeat to Juventus and suffer a 4-0 humbling in the Vicente Calderón. Ancelotti was sacked. Secondly, his departure from Everton left a bitter taste in the mouth. Not only had he confirmed his intention to stay at Goodison Park just weeks beforehand, his sole season in charge had been something of a letdown. They lost to 3 of the bottom 4 sides at home, whilst just 3 victories in their final 12 games saw them drop from 5th at the end of March to 10th, their second lowest finish over the last 5 seasons. You could therefore excuse Madridistas from being slightly underwhelmed with yet another below par managerial appointment. 4. Failing transfer policy. Whilst Real Madrid fans might have cheered themselves up over the last 6 months reading about Barcelona's financial situation, it's clear they don't have too much to shout about themselves, with COVID-19 striking just after they borrowed more than €600 million to renovate the Bernabeu. Knowing what we know now, it is therefore easy to reflect differently on Real's transfer policy over the last few seasons. Since Carlo Ancelotti's departure in May 2015, Los Blancos have only spent more than €35 million on 8 players, 5 of whom arrived in the summer of 2019, compared to 12 for Barcelona. This relative lack of spending, combined with the failure of big money signings Hazard, Jovic and Rodrigo, means that Ancelotti will return to find Benzema, Modric and Kroos are still Real's key players 6 years later. The Real Madrid faithful have grown increasingly impatient with the likes of Asensio, Vinicius Jr and Rodrigo, who combined to contribute 20 league goal involvements last season, 1 fewer than Kroos and Modric managed between them. But what is even more disconcerting is the fate of many of the players they've let go. Kovacic helped Chelsea to a Champions League title last season. Marcos Llorente's 12 goals and 11 assists helped Atleti win their first La Liga in 7 years. Mateo Hernandez is now viewed as one of the best left-backs in Europe, whilst Achraf Hakimi's performances for Dortmund and Serie A winners Inter over the last 2 seasons have earned him a big money move to PSG. Not only that, but players such as Borja Mayoral, Brahim Diaz and Luka Jovic also shone at various points on loan last season. And things could be about to get a whole lot worse on that front. 3. Defensive rebuild. The 17th of June 2021 was a day many thought was impossible. After 16 years, 671 appearances, 101 goals and a ridiculous 22 trophies, the second most for a single player in Real's illustrious 119-year history, Sergio Ramos left the club. Joining for a then world record fee for a teenager of €27 million in 2005, Ramos leaves as the defining defender of his generation and arguably the greatest of all time. Yet Real refused to hand Ramos the 2-year deal he desired, instead offering him a 1-year extension on a reduced salary. Now he's expected to sign for PSG. It might not be the worst time to say goodbye to Ramos. He's 35 and was only fit enough to play just over 1,200 league minutes last term, 13th in the squad and 700 fewer than in any of the last 12 completed seasons. He made just 3 appearances from mid-January, one of which was an error-strewn display away to Chelsea in the Champions League that saw his side lose 2-0 and exit the competition. But whilst Ramos is clearly in decline, his leadership ability and crucial knack for scoring important goals remains undimmed. How will Real Madrid cope with the departure of their defensive rock, who is second only to Karim Benzema for goals scored for Real over the last 3 seasons. As if that wasn't enough, it also appears that Raphael Varane could also be leaving the Spanish capital, with Manchester United reportedly his most likely destination. The Athletic went as far to say at the end of June that the club are resigned to losing him, with the 28-year-old keen for a new challenge after 10 years at the club. But don't hold your breath, as Manchester United have been played by Los Blancos stars looking to earn improved contracts at their clubs. But for Real Madrid, this is potentially devastating. As an essential member of a Real side that won 3 La Ligas and 4 Champions Leagues, many believe Varane would be the long-term heir to Ramos as captain. And whilst the club are reportedly considering moves for one of Jules Koundé or Pau Torres, there is hardly time to bed an entirely new centre-back pairing. As it stands, their options for next season are David Alaba, who's expressed his desire to play in midfield, Nacho, Eder Militao and Jesus Vallejo. With Real's 2 most recent title challenges built off the back of a defence that conceded just 53 goals across 1920 and 2021, 24 fewer than Barcelona, it's essential that Real don't throw away their point difference as they look to close the gap on Atleti. 2. No superstar signings. In the past, Real Madrid have always been able to use their financial muscle and status to stay ahead of their rivals. But for a second summer in a row, it doesn't look like they have the capacity to sign anyone on a multi-million-pound deal, let alone someone befitting of a Galactico status the Madridistas have grown accustomed to. As we've explored, money is tight at the Bernabeu. Back in January, Sport reported that Los Blancos faced a net debt of €355 million, including a bill of €126 million owed to other sides and transfer fees. And the pandemic has meant the 13 times European champions are expecting to see their revenue down by €300 million across the 2021 campaign. The club's president Florentino Perez is of course not entirely to blame for that. However, his previously highlighted failings in the transfer market has certainly played its part. The situation is so dire, Marca reported that Carlo Ancelotti has resigned himself to the fact there won't be many new faces turning up the Bernabeu beyond David Alaba this summer. Meanwhile, the fact Perez handed the Austrian a 5-year deal worth a rumoured £400,000 per week has also been met with scrutiny. Now Real Madrid face the worrying prospect of missing out on a number of superstar signings should their financial woes continue. Already this summer we've seen the likes of Manchester United flex their muscles with the £73 million addition of Jadon Sancho, while Manchester City looks set to go big for the likes of Harry Kane and Jack Grealish. PSG have been sweeping up stars from Gini Wijnaldum to Gianluigi Donnarumma and have now captured Achraf Hakimi too. Even their bitter rivals Barcelona have proved surprisingly astute, snapping up Sergio Aguero, Memphis Depay and Eric Garcia all on free transfers. Madrid meanwhile have a bloated squad with players like Gareth Bale and Luka Jovic proving near impossible to sell. It's no secret Perez dreams of bringing a next generational star like Erling Haaland or Kylian Mbappe to Madrid. They are the 2 prospects that all of Europe's biggest sides are vying for should it be this summer or next. But while they continue to be handicapped by their financial wounds, there is every chance that Real Madrid will be left behind once a bidding war commences. 1. Frustrations with Florentino. For the past 2 decades, Florentino Perez has been Real Madrid's commander-in-chief. First elected president of Los Blancos between 2000 and 2006. After a 3-year hiatus, he returned in 2009 and has been in charge ever since. Such is the 74-year-old's power at Madrid, he has run unopposed in each of the last 3 club elections, but more on that later. Much of the billionaire's legacy will always be cemented with his Galacticos policy of bringing the biggest names to the Spanish capital. But now Perez's role in the ill-fated European Super League could prove the defining feature of his reign in charge of Los Merengues. On the 18th of April 2021, 12 of Europe's footballing giants broke from UEFA to launch the new European Super League. Perez was installed as its first chairman and proudly announced the ESL would save football for all. You all know what happened next. But as he watched it fall apart under intense fan pressure, a car crash of an interview on the loyalist TV show El Chiringuito de Jojones only damned the ESL further. To date, Real Madrid have never officially withdrawn or renounced the Super League, Perez stating it is merely on standby. The Madridistas have not unanimously rejected the Super League either, considering the financial benefits it would have brought the club. Nor has there been a total rebellion against Perez, with a core of hardline supporters viewing his actions as a push against perceived corruption in FIFA and UEFA. But there has been growing dissent on social media, and calls for the construction magnate to step down for tarnishing the club's reputation. Even Marca, a Spanish publication who rarely criticises Perez, announced he had been ridiculed in the wake of the Super League's 3-day collapse. But can anyone stand against him? Part of the reason Perez holds such a monopoly over the elections is due to a members' vote in 2012, which enforced strict eligibility requirements to enter consideration. A candidate must have been a Real Madrid member or socio for at least 20 years, and must have sufficient personal wealth to be able to obtain a bank guarantee worth at least 15% of the club's budget, around €75 million. And surprise, surprise, Perez was the driving force behind the reforms and has remained unopposed ever since. In 2015, the statute changes were challenged in court by a group of socios who argued that they were illegal and elections should be done under the old rules. Perez won that time, but after dragging the club dangerously close to the brink of total humiliation, his position of power has never looked so fragile. So those are our 5 reasons why we think it's going wrong at Real Madrid. What do you think? Are we going out of hand, or do you think there are genuine issues they need to resolve? Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure you're liked and subscribed to Euro Football Daily with the notification bell switched on, and we'll see you next time.